Mom, I'm... Mom, I'm scared. When ex-Navy SEAL mom faces 50 armed terrorists to save her kids. The fluorescent lights of the 47th floor hummed their familiar tune as Sarah Mitchell aligned another column of numbers on her spreadsheet. Her fingers moved across the keyboard with the same precision that once guided them along the trigger guard of an M4 carbine. 5 years. 5 years since she'd traded desert camo for business casual night vision goggles for reading glasses that she didn't really need but wore anyway because they helped sell the illusion. Sarah Mitchell, senior accountant at Titan Defense Systems. Not Sarah Mitchell, former Navy SEAL Team 6 operator with 17 confirmed kills and a chest full of medals hidden in a storage unit across town. Her phone buzzed. A text from the school. Mom, I forgot my science project. Can you bring it, Jake? Her 8-year-old son, brilliant but scattered, just like his father had been. She glanced at the clock, 8:47 a.m. The project sat on her kitchen counter, a volcano made from paper-mache that had taken them 3 nights to perfect. Any other morning, she would have driven it over during her lunch break. But something felt different today. Wrong. It started with the elevator maintenance crew that had arrived at 6 a.m. She'd noticed them on her way in 4 men in matching blue coveralls, toolboxes that seemed too light for the work they claimed to be doing. Their eyes had tracked her movement across the lobby with an intensity that triggered old instincts she'd spent years trying to suppress. The way they held themselves, weight balanced on the balls of their feet, shoulders loose but ready. Fighters pretending to be workers. Then there was the new security guard at the main desk. Henderson had called in sick, supposedly replaced by a man with Slavic features and hands that bore the telltale scarring of someone who'd spent years bare-knuckle boxing. He'd smiled at her, showing teeth that were too perfect, too white, like a wolf attempting to pass for a sheep. Sarah's fingers paused over her keyboard. The quarterly defense contract she was reviewing suddenly seemed less important than the prickling sensation at the base of her neck. In Fallujah, that feeling had saved her life more times than she could count. Here in a glass tower in Manhattan, it seemed absurd, paranoid. The therapist the Navy had mandated after her discharge called it hypervigilance, a common symptom of combat stress. But Sarah knew the difference between paranoia and pattern recognition. She minimized her spreadsheet and pulled up the building's internal security feed on her computer. One of the perks of working for a defense contractor, everyone had access to basic security protocols. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, cycling through camera feeds. Lobby normal, parking garage normal, loading dock. Sarah's breath caught. A white van unmarked backed up to the service entrance. Men unloading metal cases, heavy ones that required 2 people to carry. The shape was familiar, burned into her memory from countless mission briefings. Weapons cases. Her desk phone rang. She let it go to voicemail, her attention focused on the screen. More men now moving through the service corridors. They disabled the cameras on floors 15 through 20, but she could track their progress by the gaps in the feed. Methodical, professional, military precision. Sarah. She spun in her chair. Marcus Stone stood in her cubicle entrance, his FBI credentials clipped to his belt, partially hidden by his suit jacket. She'd met him 3 weeks ago when he'd come to investigate some irregularities in Titan's overseas contracts. Coffee had turned into dinner into a second date she'd been planning for this weekend. He was handsome in that clean-cut federal agent way, with eyes that seemed to notice everything, and a smile that made her forget sometimes that she'd sworn off relationships after Jake and Emma's father had died. Marcus, what are you doing here? She kept her voice level, professional, even as her mind raced. FBI agents didn't make social calls to defense contractors at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. We need to talk. His eyes flickered to her computer screen, taking in the security feeds. Privately. Before she could respond, the lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then the emergency lighting kicked in, bathing the office in an eerie red glow. The background hum of computers and air conditioning died, replaced by a silence so complete it seemed to press against her eardrums. Marcus's hand moved to his hip, where Sarah knew he kept his service weapon. How many exits from this floor? 4 stairwells, 2 elevator banks. The response was automatic, a tactical assessment she'd made her first day on the job. Old habits. Marcus, what's happening? In about 30 seconds, this building is going to be completely locked down. No one in, no one out. He pulled out his phone, fingers flying across the screen. I've been tracking a weapons dealer named Viktor Volkov for 6 months. Former Spetsnaz Russian Special Forces. He's planning something big, and I think the explosion cut him off. Not close, maybe 10 floors down, but strong enough to shake the building. Sarah was already moving muscle memory taking over. She pulled open her desk drawer, pushing aside staplers and paper clips to reveal the Glock 19 she kept taped to the underside. Marcus raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Screams echoed from the main office area. Sarah and Marcus moved together, weapons drawn, but held low, approaching the cubicle farm's main corridor. What they saw made Sarah's blood run cold. Men in tactical gear, faces hidden behind balaclavas, weapons raised. At least a dozen on this floor alone. They moved with military efficiency, herding Titan's employees toward the conference rooms. Sarah recognized the weapons AK-12s, the latest Russian military rifle. These weren't street thugs or even standard mercenaries. These were professionals. Everyone remained calm. The voice boomed across the floor, accented but clear. You are now guests of the Liberation Army. Cooperate and no one will be hurt. Resist and you will be shot. Sarah pulled Marcus back into the shadows of the cubicle maze. Liberation Army. Cover story. Volkov likes to pretend he's fighting for some cause. Truth is, he's here for something specific. Marcus checked his phone again, face grim. No signal. They're jamming everything. What does he want? Titan Defense Systems just finished developing new nuclear launch codes for the submarine fleet. Unhackable, they claim. Stored on a server on the 52nd floor. Sarah's mind raced. Nuclear codes. In the wrong hands, they could start a war. Or prevent one, depending on who was buying. We need to get to that server. We need to get out of here and call for backup. By the time SWAT gets here, it'll be too late. You know that. A woman's scream pierced the air. Sarah recognized the voice. Jennifer from HR's 6 months pregnant husband, deployed overseas with the Marines. Without thinking, Sarah moved toward the sound. Marcus grabbed her arm. Sarah, no, we can't save everyone. She turned to face him, and something in her expression made him release his grip. Watch me. The scream came from the break room. Sarah approached low, using the cubicle walls for cover. Through the doorway, she could see Jennifer on her knees, a terrorist's rifle pressed against her temple. The man was speaking in Russian, demanding something. Jennifer sobbed, shaking her head. Sarah didn't hesitate. The Glock whispered twice, suppressor-equipped rounds taking the terrorist in the head and neck. He dropped without a sound. Jennifer's eyes went wide, staring at Sarah like she'd never seen her before. Bathroom. Now, lock the door and don't come out until I tell you. Sarah's voice carried the authority of command, and Jennifer obeyed without question. Marcus appeared beside her. That was incredibly stupid. That was necessary. Sarah stripped the dead terrorist of his weapons and radio, and now we know their communication frequency. The radio crackled to life. Russian voices coordinating positions. Sarah's Russian was rusty but functional, another gift from her SEAL training. They were setting up command posts on every 10th floor, and with the main objective being the server room. 50 men total, plus Volkov himself, who was establishing his headquarters in the CEO's office on the 60th floor. 50 men. Marcus whistled low. We need to... Mitchell! The voice boomed across the office. Sarah Mitchell, I know you're listening. Sarah froze. They knew her name. Come out, little accountant. Or should I say Lieutenant Commander Mitchell? Oh yes, I know who you are. What you are. The ghost of Fallujah, they called you. 17 confirmed kills in Iraq. 3 silver stars. And now you hide behind spreadsheets and think your past won't find you. Marcus stared at her. Lieutenant Commander. It's complicated. Complicated. His voice rose slightly. Your military was Navy SEAL Team 6, retired 5 years ago. She checked the AK-12's magazine, full. And right now, that's the only chance we have of getting out of here alive. The voice continued. I have something that might interest you, Mitchell. Or should I say someone? A new sound filled the air. A child crying. No, not just any child. Sarah's blood turned to ice. Mommy, Emma's voice, her 6-year-old daughter. Mommy, I'm scared. Sarah's world tilted. They had her children. Somehow they had her children. The speaker crackled again. This time the voice was different. Deeper, more cultured, with only a trace of accent. Mrs. Mitchell, my name is Victor Volkov. I believe we have much to discuss. You have 10 minutes to present yourself at the 60th floor alone and unarmed. If you do not, I will kill 1 hostage every minute, starting with young Emma. The clock starts now. Sarah's hands trembled as she gripped the rifle. Every instinct screamed at her to charge upstairs to tear apart anyone who stood between her and her children. But that's what Volkov expected, what he wanted. In the SEALs, they had a saying, emotion gets you killed. Think first, feel later. Sarah, Marcus touched her shoulder gently. We'll get them back. He doesn't have them. The voice came from behind them. Both spun weapons raised to find a man in his 60s standing with his hands raised. Colonel Thomas Mackenzie, retired Titan's Wild senior security advisor, and more importantly, Sarah's former commanding officer. Colonel, Sarah lowered her weapon slightly. At ease, Mitchell. Despite the situation, his voice carried a hint of humor. Your kids are safe. I got word about unusual activity this morning and had a friend pick them up from school. They're at Fort Dix by now under Army protection. Relief flooded through Sarah so intensely her knees nearly buckled. Then how? Recording. They must have hacked the school security system, pulled audio from yesterday when Emma fell on the playground. Mackenzie moved closer, his movements still fluid despite his age. But Volkov doesn't know we know that, and that gives us an advantage. Sir, with all due respect, what are you doing here? Sarah had 100 questions, but that seemed the most pressing. Same thing as Agent Stone here. Investigating. He nodded to Marcus. Though I suspect from different angles. Titan's been compromised for months. Someone's been feeding information to Volkov about the submarine codes. I've been trying to identify the mole. Any luck? I have my suspicions. But right now, that's secondary. Volkov thinks he has leverage over you. We can use that. Marcus shook his head. She can't go up there. It's suicide. Not going. Sarah's mind was already working through possibilities. At least not the way he expects. The radio in her hand crackled. 9 minutes, Mrs. Mitchell. Sarah looked at the two men. Colonel, how much do you know about the building's infrastructure? Everything. I designed the security protocols, including the maintenance shafts. A smile played at this corner of his mouth. I see where you're going with this. Yes, including those. Marcus looked between them. Care to fill in the FBI agent? Volkov expects me to walk into his trap, but this building has maintenance shafts running between floors designed for HVAC and electrical work. They're not on any public blueprint. Because I had them modified when Titan moved in, Mackenzie added, in case we ever needed to move sensitive materials without using the main corridors. So we go up through the shafts, hit them from behind. Marcus was catching on. We need a diversion first, something to draw their attention. Sarah pulled up the building's blueprint on a nearby computer, the emergency power keeping essential systems online. Colonel, the fire suppression system. Can we trigger it manually? From the mechanical room on 45, yes, but they'll have guards. I'll handle the guards. Sarah's voice was cold, clinical. The accountant was gone. In her place stood the warrior she'd tried so hard to bury. Marcus, I need you to do something for me. Anything. Get to the security office on 30, lock it down and try to restore communications. Even if you can't call out, we need to know what's happening on each floor. And you? The colonel and I are going to pay Mr. Volkov a visit. 8 minutes, the radio announced. Sarah turned to Mackenzie. Just like old times, sir. God, I hope not. I'm too old for the kind of trouble you used to get us into, Mitchell. But he was already checking the pistol at his hip, movements smooth and practiced. Though I admit retirement's been boring. Sarah, Marcus caught her arm as she turned to leave. Be careful. These aren't insurgents in some distant country. This is Manhattan. The rules are different here. She looked at him. Really looked at him, FBI agent by the book, still believing in rules and procedures, even with 50 armed men in the building. He was everything her late husband hadn't been: stable, safe, predictable. Everything she'd thought she wanted in her new life. No, she said quietly. The rules are exactly the same. Protect the innocent. Stop the bad guys. Survive. 7 minutes. Volkov's voice echoed through the building. Sarah slung the AK-12 across her back and checked the Glock one more time. 5 years of pretending to be normal. 5 years of PTA meetings and bake sales and helping with homework. She thought she could leave the warrior behind, become just another suburban mom with a boring job in a minivan. But as she moved toward the stairwell, muscle memory taking over, she realized the truth. You could take the SEAL out of the Navy, but you couldn't take the Navy out of the SEAL. And right now, with 50 armed terrorists in her building and nuclear codes at stake, that might be the only thing that saved them all. The mechanical room door stood before them, and through it Sarah could hear voices. Russian, at least 3 men. 6 minutes. The radio crackled. Sarah looked at Colonel Mackenzie, who despite his age held his weapon with rock-steady hands. You ready for this, old man? I was killing bad guys before you were born, Mitchell. Try to keep up. She smiled, the first genuine emotion she'd felt since this nightmare began. Then she raised her foot and kicked in the door. The three guards inside had exactly 1 second to register the intrusion before Sarah's Glock spoke 3 times. Center mass, headshot. They dropped like marionettes with severed strings. Still got it, Mackenzie observed, moving to the fire suppression controls. Though your grouping's a little wide on that second target. Accountant hands. Lost my edge. Sarah secured the door behind them. How long to trigger the system? 2 minutes to override the safeties. It'll flood every floor except the server rooms and executive levels. They waterproofed those after 9/11. Do it. While Mackenzie worked, Sarah studied the building schematics taped to the wall. The maintenance shafts ran in a spiral pattern designed to provide access to every floor while minimizing structural weakness. From here, they could reach the 60th floor in maybe 10 minutes if they move fast. 5 minutes, Mitchell. 5 hostages will die because of your cowardice. Sarah picked up one of the dead guards' radios and switched to the terrorist frequency. In perfect Russian, she said, Team 3 report status. A pause, then a response. Who is this Team 3 respond? She'd bought them maybe a minute of confusion. It would have to be enough. Done. Mackenzie stepped back from the control panel. 60 seconds to activation. The water pressure will be intense. Anyone not expecting it will be knocked flat. Good. That's our window. Sarah pulled open the maintenance shaft access. The vertical corridor stretched up into darkness, metal rungs bolted to the walls. Think you can make the climb? I was free climbing in the Hindu Kush while you were in diapers, Mitchell. He holstered his weapon and started up. Besides, someone needs to watch your 6. They climbed in silence, the metal rungs cold under Sarah's hands. 15 feet, 30. Her shoulders burned, but it was a familiar pain, almost welcome. How many times had she done this in training? 100, 1,000. Below them, an alarm began to whirl. The fire suppression system had activated. That's our cue, Mackenzie said from above her. Double time. They climbed faster now, the shaft echoing with the sound of rushing water from the floors below. Sarah could hear shouting confusion, anger. Volkov's men hadn't expected this. 4 minutes, Mitchell. Volkov's voice over the radio was furious now. You test my patience. They reached the 55th floor access panel. Sarah paused, listening. No voices on the other side. She pushed it open carefully, emerging into a utility room. Mackenzie followed both of them, drawing weapons. Executive elevators down the hall, he whispered. But it'll be guarded. Then we take the stairs. They moved through the corridors like ghosts, decades of training, evident in every step. Twice they encountered guards, and twice those guards died before they could raise an alarm. Sarah felt nothing as she pulled the trigger. No remorse, no hesitation. These men had threatened her children, even if it was a bluff. That was a line you didn't cross. The stairwell to the 60th floor was different. Reinforced doors, electronic locks, 2 guards in body armor. They stood at attention, AK-12s at the ready, clearly expecting trouble. Sarah and Mackenzie ducked back around the corner. Ideas, Mackenzie asked. 1. Sarah pulled a grenade from one of the dead terrorists' belts. But you're not going to like it. Mitchell, we can't use explosives. The hostages, not explosives. She pulled the pin but held the spoon. Distraction. Before he could protest, she rolled the grenade down the hallway. The guards saw it, shouted, and dove for cover. Sarah and Mackenzie came around the corner firing. The guards, committed to their defensive positions, couldn't adjust in time. Both went down hard. The grenade, its spoon released when Sarah threw it, would have exploded, except Sarah had already removed the blasting cap. It was just an empty shell, but the guards hadn't known that. Psychological warfare, Mackenzie said approvingly. I taught you well. 3 minutes, Volkov announced. I am disappointed, Mrs. Mitchell. I expected more from the famous Ghost of Fallujah. They entered the stairwell, climbing toward the executive floors. Sarah could feel her heart pounding, not from exertion, but from anticipation. Somewhere above them was Viktor Volkov, and he was about to learn what happened when you threatened Asil's family. The 60th floor was eerily quiet. The executive level, all marble and glass, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of Manhattan. In any other circumstance, Sarah might have admired it. The CEO's office doors stood open at the end of the hallway. An invitation, a trap. I'll go in first, Sarah said. Negative, we go together or not at all. She wanted to argue, but the colonel was right. They moved down the hallway, weapons raised, checking corners and doorways. Nothing. Either Volkov was supremely confident, or this was a bigger trap than she'd anticipated. They reached the office doors. Inside, she could see him, Viktor Volkov, standing with his back to them, hands clasped behind him as he gazed out at the city. He was shorter than she'd expected, but powerfully built, his shoulders straining against his expensive suit. 2 minutes, he said without turning. Though I suspect that's no longer relevant. Is it Mrs. Mitchell? Or should I say ghost? Sarah entered the office, weapon trained on his back. Turn around, slowly. He complied, revealing a face that was almost handsome, if not for the scar, running from his left eye to his jaw. His eyes were pale blue like winter ice and utterly without fear. The famous Sarah Mitchell. You look different from your file photos. Motherhood agrees with you. Where are the hostages? Safe. For now. He smiled, revealing perfect white teeth. You killed 6 of my men getting here. I should be angry. Instead, I'm impressed. The fire suppression system was particularly clever. Let the hostages go. Whatever you want, we can discuss it without innocent people being involved. Innocent? Volkov laughed. This is a defense contractor, Mrs. Mitchell. These people build weapons that kill thousands. Hundreds of thousands. How innocent are they, really? More innocent than you. Perhaps. He moved to his desk, movements casual, unthreatening. Do you know what I want, Mrs. Mitchell? The submarine codes. No. His smile widened. I want you. Sarah's finger tightened on the trigger. Explain. The codes are valuable, yes, but you, a decorated Navy SEAL officially dead, according to certain classified documents living under an assumed identity, you're priceless. There are governments that would pay millions just to debrief you, terrorist organizations that would pay more to have you train their fighters. I'll die first. No, you won't. He pressed a button on his desk. Because I don't have your children, but I do have something else. The wall screen behind him flickered to life. Security footage from the building's daycare center on the 2nd floor. 20 children, all under the age of 5, sitting in a circle with their teachers, and around them 4 of Volkov's men with weapons drawn. Sarah's blood ran cold. You son of a... 1 minute, Volkov interrupted. In 1 minute, if you don't lower your weapon and surrender, those children die. Not your children, true, but innocent nonetheless. Can the great Sarah Mitchell, protector of the innocent, live with that? Mackenzie spoke for the first time. You're bluffing. You kill those kids, you lose any leverage you have. Do I? Volkov pulled out a phone. 1 call, that's all it takes. 4 men with automatic weapons versus toddlers and daycare workers. How many die before you can reach them? 10, 15. All of them. Sarah's mind raced. The daycare was 58 floors down. Even if she killed Volkov now, his men would follow through. She couldn't save those children from here. Or could she? 30 seconds, Volkov said pleasantly. Sarah lowered her weapon. All right, you win. Sarah, no, Mackenzie protested. Colonel, stand down. That's an order. She placed her Glock on the floor and kicked it away. I surrender. Volkov's smile was triumphant. I knew you would see reason. The famous SEAL honor, your greatest strength and greatest weakness. Now let the children go. Of course. He picked up his phone, speaking in rapid Russian. On the screen, the 4 guards stepped back from the children, weapons lowering. See, I am a man of my word. Sarah relaxed fractionally. Then she heard it, Marcus's voice over the building's intercom system. Attention all federal agents in the building. This is Agent Marcus Stone, FBI. We have confirmation that the daycare threat has been neutralized. Repeat, daycare is secure. Volkov's face went pale. On the screen, the 4 guards removed their balaclavas, revealing FBI tactical gear underneath. The entire daycare scenario had been a counter trap. You knew, Volkov breathed. Sarah smiled. I suspected. You're many things, Volkov, but you're not a child killer. Bad for business. Your buyers want clean transactions, not international incidents. His hand moved towards his jacket. Sarah was already moving, diving for her discarded weapon. Volkov's pistol cleared its holster just as Sarah's hand found the Glock. Both fired simultaneously. Sarah felt the bullet tear through her shoulder, spinning her around. She hit the ground hard, but kept her weapon up, firing 3 more rounds. Volkov staggered, red spreading across his white shirt, but didn't fall. You think you've won? Blood ran from the corner of his mouth. The codes are already uploading. If they're me, Mom, in 30 seconds, they'll be transmitted to buyers around the world. Nuclear chaos, Mrs. Mitchell, the end of... Mackenzie's bullet took him in the forehead, cutting off his words. Volkov crumpled his phone, clattering across the marble floor. Sarah struggled to her feet, pressing her hand against her shoulder wound. The server room, we have to stop the upload. Can you make it? Do I have a choice? They ran Sarah, leaving a trail of blood drops on the pristine marble. The server room was 2 floors up, secured behind biometric locks that Mackenzie overrode with his security codes. Inside banks of servers hummed their lights blinking in synchronized patterns. On the main console, a progress bar showed 87% uploaded. Sarah pushed past the pain, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Command lines scrolled past encryption protocols and firewall codes that would have been gibberish to most people. But Sarah had spent 6 months in Navy intelligence before joining the SEALs, and she knew her way around secure systems. "Can you stop it?" Mackenzie asked, watching the door. "Maybe. If I can isolate the transmission protocol and inject a virus into the data stream." Her fingers never stopped moving. "There. Got it." She initiated her countermeasure just as the upload hit 94%. The progress bar flickered stop, then began moving backward. "It's working," she breathed. Then the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a second later, bathing everything in red. But the servers were down, their lights dark. "No, no, no," Sarah pounded on the keyboard, but it was dead. "They cut the power," Mackenzie said grimly. "The upload, I don't know. It might have completed, might have corrupted, might have been deleted entirely. Without power, I can't tell." Footsteps echoed into the corridor outside, many footsteps. Mackenzie checked his ammunition. "We've got company." Sarah picked up an AK-12 from one of Volkov's dead men, grimacing as the movement pulled at her shoulder wound. "How many rounds do you have?" "8 in the mag, 1 spare." "Not enough." "Never is." The door exploded inward and Volkov's remaining men poured through. Sarah and Mackenzie fired controlled bursts using the server racks for cover. Men fell, but more kept coming. Sarah's ammunition ran dry. She transitioned to her pistol, making every shot count. Then suddenly the attacking stopped. "United States Marine Corps, everyone freeze." Marines in full tactical gear flooded the room, weapons raised. Behind them, Marcus Stone appeared, his FBI vest torn and dirty, but his smile intact. "Cavalry's here," he said simply. Sarah lowered her weapons, suddenly exhausted. "How?" "Your Colonel Mackenzie is a smart man. He triggered a silent alarm to Fort Dix before Volkov's men cut communications. The Marines have been mobilizing for the past hour. Once we confirmed the daycare was secure, they moved in. The upload, NSA caught it mid-transmission. Your virus corrupted most of the data. What got through was useless garbage code." He moved closer, noticing her shoulder. "You're hurt." "I've had worse." "Tough as nails," Mackenzie said approvingly. "Just like I trained her." A Marine Corpsman appeared immediately, beginning treatment on Sarah's shoulder. She winced as he probed the wound. "Through and through," he announced. "You're lucky. An inch to the right and it would have hit the subclavian artery." "Lucky," Sarah repeated. She didn't feel lucky. She felt tired, hurt, and angry, but also alive. More alive than she'd felt in 5 years. "Ma'am," a Marine captain approached. "We've secured all floors. 32 terrorists in custody, 18 dead. All hostages accounted for and safe." "Volkov, dead." Sarah nodded, then remembered something. "My kids, safe at Fort Dix," Marcus assured her, "being spoiled rotten by about 50 soldiers who are very impressed their mom is a real-life Navy SEAL." Sarah laughed, then winced as it pulled at her shoulder. "They're going to have so many questions." "You could always go back to being just an accountant," Mackenzie suggested. "Pretend this never happened." Sarah looked around the destroyed server room, at the Marines securing evidence, at Marcus watching her with admiration and something deeper. Then she thought about the morning spreadsheets, the mundane routine of her supposed normal life. "No," she said finally, "I'm done pretending." "The CIA could use someone with your skills," Marcus offered. "Domestic counterterrorism, better hours than the SEALs, and you could stay close to your kids." "FBI might be hiring too," Mackenzie added with a knowing smile, "in case you wanted to keep working with certain agents." Sarah looked at Marcus, who suddenly seemed very interested in his shoes. "We'll see," she said. "First, I need to figure out how to explain to my kids why mommy knows 17 different ways to disarm a man with a paperclip." 18, Mackenzie corrected. "I taught you 18. As the corpsman finished bandaging her shoulder, Sarah stood steadying herself against a server rack. Outside the windows, Manhattan continued its daily chaos, unaware of how close it had come to disaster. Tomorrow the news would be full of stories about the attempted terrorist attack on Titan Defense Systems. They'd mentioned the heroic FBI agent who coordinated the response, the Marines who stormed the building, maybe even the mysterious security advisor who helped stop the upload. But they wouldn't mention Sarah Mitchell, accountant and mother of 2, who had saved them all. That was fine with her. The ghost of Fallujah had never fought for recognition. "Agent Stone," she said formally, "I need to give my statement." "Of course." Marcus pulled out his phone, then paused. "But maybe we could do it over dinner." After you get that shoulder properly treated, of course. Sarah smiled. Are you asking me on a date in the middle of a crime scene? Is that a yes? It's a maybe. I need to go hug my kids first. Explain why mommy's going to be on the news. Figure out if I still have a job after shooting up my workplace. Technically, Mackenzie interjected, you were defending it. I'll make sure Titan sees it that way. Besides, something tells me you're about to get some much more interesting job offers. As they walked toward the elevator surrounded by Marines and FBI agents, Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Impressive work, Ghost. Perhaps we should talk. Langley. She showed it to Marcus, who whistled. CIA works fast. They always have. Sarah deleted the message. But that's tomorrow's problem. Today I just want to be mom. But as they descended through the building, passing floor after floor of damage, and evidence of the fight, Sarah knew the truth. She could never go back to just being mom. The ghost of Fallujah had been awakened, and there was no putting her back to sleep. Besides, she thought as Marcus's hand found hers in the elevator, maybe this new life would be better than the one she'd been pretending to live. No more hiding, no more pretending to be weak, no more boring spreadsheets. Sarah Mitchell, accountant, was dead. Sarah Mitchell, warrior mother and protector, was very much alive. 3 weeks had passed since the Titan Defense Systems incident, and Sarah Mitchell stood in the underground parking garage of a nondescript office building in Virginia, her shoulder still aching when it rained. The CIA recruiter, a woman who identified herself only as Diana, had been persistent. 3 meetings each more compelling than the last, until finally Sarah had agreed to this, a trial run with a special counterterrorism unit. Your official title would be Tactical Analysis Specialist. Diana explained, her heels clicking on the concrete as she led Sarah toward a service elevator. Unofficially, you'd be what we call a cleaner, someone who handles situations that require both brain and brawn. And my kids, full educational support, private school if you want it, medical, dental, even college funds. The agency takes care of its own, Ms. Mitchell. The elevator descended far deeper than the building above should have allowed. Sarah counted floors, 10, 15, 20. When the doors opened, she found herself in a facility that looked like it belonged in a movie. Gleaming corridors, biometric scanners at every door, personnel in suits and tactical gear moving with purpose. Welcome to the pit, Diana said. Your evaluation starts now. Before Sarah could respond, alarms began blaring. Red lights bathed the corridor in hellish illumination. This is not a drill, a voice boomed over the intercom. Containment breach in Section 7. All personnel evacuate immediately. Diana's face had gone pale. That's impossible. Section 7 is our detention facility. Maximum security. Gunfire echoed from somewhere below them. Not the controlled bursts of training, but the chaotic symphony of actual combat. Sarah's instincts kicked in. Give me a weapon. I can't just... More gunfire closer now. Screams followed. Give me a weapon or we're both dead. Diana pulled a Sig Sauer from her purse, handing it to Sarah along with 2 spare magazines. Stay close. They moved toward the stairwell, but Sarah grabbed Diana's arm, pulling her back, just as the door exploded outward. 3 men in orange jumpsuits burst through carrying stolen weapons. Prisoners. Sarah didn't hesitate. 3 shots, 3 bodies hitting the floor. She stripped one of an MP5, checking the magazine, half full. How many prisoners in Section 7? She asked, already knowing she wouldn't like the answer. 43, all high-value terrorists awaiting interrogation or trial. And how many made it out? Diana checked, her phone, fingers shaking. Internal sensors show all of them. Sarah cursed. 40 terrorists loose in a CIA facility. This wasn't a breach. It was a massacre waiting to happen. We need to get to the command center, Diana said. Coordinate the response. Negative. They'll hit command first, try to access the databases. Sarah thought fast. What's in this facility besides detention? Research labs, archives, a weapons depot. Diana's eyes widened. Oh God, the vault. What vault? Sublevel 30. It contains identities and locations of every undercover operative we have in the field. If they access that, every American spy in the world dies. Sarah was already moving. We stopped them there. They descended through maintenance passages, avoiding the main corridors where gunfire continued to echo. Sarah counted at least 4 different types of weapons being fired. AKs, MS-4s, shotguns, pistols. The prisoners had raided an armory. At sublevel 25, they encountered their first real resistance. 6 men in orange is setting up what looked like explosive charges on a massive blast door. Sarah pulled Diana into an alcove. What's behind that door? Biological weapons research, anthrax, smallpox variants, things that shouldn't exist. The thought of terrorists with bioweapons made Sarah's blood run cold. She studied the scene, 6 men spread out in tactical positions. No way to take them all before one triggered the explosives. Unless, Diana, I need you to do exactly what I say. Can you do that? The recruiter nodded, though fear was evident in her eyes. On my signal, you're going to run across that corridor shooting wildly. Don't aim, just spray bullets and keep moving. That's suicide. No, it's distraction. Trust me. Sarah positioned herself waiting. Then now, Diana ran firing blindly. The terrorists turned toward her, weapons rising. In that split second of distraction, Sarah struck. The MP5 chattered in controlled bursts. 4 men down before they knew what hit them. The fifth turned toward her, but Sarah was already moving, sliding across the floor. Her shot took him in the throat. The sixth man's hand on the detonator froze as Sarah's weapon centered on his forehead. Press it, and we all die, she said calmly. Paradise awaits, he replied in accented English. So does hell. She shot him before he could make his choice. The detonator fell harmlessly from his dead hand. Diana emerged from cover, staring at the bodies. How did you? Training. We need to keep moving. They descended further, the sounds of combat growing more distant. At sub-level 28, they found bodies. CIA security personnel torn apart by automatic weapons fire. We're too late, Diana whispered. But Sarah noticed something, the blood patterns. No, this happened at least 20 minutes ago. First wave of escapees. But look, she pointed to bloody footprints leading away from the vault. They went in, then left. Why leave unless they already got what they came for? Sarah's phone buzzed, an unknown number. She answered, putting it on speaker. Hello, Ghost. The voice was familiar, accented. Russian, but not quite. Sarah's blood chilled as she placed it. Volkov. Diana's face went white. That's impossible. He's dead. You killed him. Did I? Volkov's laugh was rich, amused. You killed my brother, Mrs. Mitchell. Anton was always too theatrical, too emotional. I told him kidnapping children was beneath us, but he insisted on his games. Sarah's mind raced. 2 Volkovs. Twins brothers, at least. The man she'd killed 3 weeks ago was just the opening act. Dmitry Volkov, she said, remembering CIA files she'd studied. The smart one. Flattery? How unlike the famous Ghost. But yes, I am the smart one. Smart enough to know that attacking your children was foolish. Smart enough to know that the real treasure wasn't nuclear codes, but something far more valuable. The operative list. Already uploaded to my buyers. But that's not why I'm calling. You see this entire event. The prison break, the attack on the facility. It's all for you. Bullshit. Is it check your phone, Mrs. Mitchell, the video I just sent? Sarah looked at her screen. Her heart stopped. Jake and Emma at their school playground, playing on the swings. The video was timestamped 30 minutes ago. The camera zoomed in on a red laser dot dancing across Jake's backpack. One word from me and your children die. Their teachers die. Every child in that school dies. Sarah's hand tightened on the phone until her knuckles went white. What do you want? You alone. There's a car waiting in at the parking garage, blue sedan license plate, Victor 77. Get in. Come alone. Any tricks, any backup, and I paint that school red. Sarah, no, Diana protested. It's a trap. Of course it's a trap. Sarah was already moving toward the elevator, but he's got my kids in his crosshairs. We can get a team to the school. In 30 minutes, maybe. He'll know the second any unit mobilizes. Sarah checked the SIGS magazine. I'm going. This is exactly what he wants. I know. Sarah stepped into the elevator. Diana listened carefully. In exactly 1 hour, I want every available unit at the Breslov Industrial Complex in Baltimore. That's where he'll take me. How do you know? Because Anton owned it through shell companies. It's where they planned the Titan attack. Dimitri's sentimental. He'll want to finish where his brother failed. The elevator doors began to close. Sarah, Diana called out, the agency won't authorize a rescue if you go rogue. Then I guess I'll have to rescue myself. The ride to the surface felt endless. Sarah's mind worked through possibilities, probabilities, strategies. Dmitry Volkov was smarter than his brother, more careful. He'd spent 3 weeks planning this, using the chaos of a prison break as cover for his real objective, her. But why? The blue sedan sat exactly where he'd said, engine running. Sarah approached carefully, checking for explosives, trackers, anything. Clean. Too clean. She got in. Drive north on Route 1, a voice said from speakers hidden in the dashboard. Any deviation, any attempt to signal for help, and you know what happens. Sarah drove. The suburban landscape of Virginia gave way to Maryland countryside, then industrial sprawl. Her phone rang constantly. Diana Marcus, even Colonel Mackenzie. She ignored them all. After an hour, the voice directed her off the highway into a maze of warehouses and factories. Most abandoned, their windows dark and broken like dead eyes. The Breslov industrial complex sprawled before her 6 square blocks of rust and ruin. Building 9, the voice instructed. Drive inside. The loading dock door stood open like a mouth. Sarah drove through into darkness, headlights illuminating rows of machinery covered in dust and decay. At the far end, lights blazed, and she could see figures waiting. She parked and got out the cig hidden in her waistband, knowing they'd find it, but needing the psychological comfort of its weight. Dmitry Volkov stood in the light, and Sarah's first thought was how different he looked from Anton. Where his brother had been scarred and brutal, Dmitry was refined, elegant even. Tall and lean with prematurely silver hair and eyes like Arctic ice. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Sarah's monthly salary. "Mrs. Mitchell, so good of you to come." His English was perfect, only the faintest trace of accent. "Please surrender your weapon. Let's be civilized about this." Sarah pulled out the cig, ejected the magazine, and tossed both aside. "My children? Safe." The sniper was never real, just a laser pointer held by a very patient man with binoculars. "I'm not my brother, Mrs. Mitchell. I don't war against children. Just against undercover operatives whose names you stole. Business is business." He gestured to a chair. "Please sit. We have much to discuss." "I'll stand." "As you wish." Dmitry poured himself a drink from a crystal decanter that looked absurdly out of place in the industrial decay. "Do you know why you're here? You want revenge for Anton." "No. Anton was a fool who got himself killed. I warned him that attacking you directly was suicide, but he always did like the dramatic gesture." He sipped his drink. "I want to offer you a job." Sarah laughed short and harsh. "You're insane. Am I consider you're a single mother with 2 children, working for people who see you as an asset, not a person? The CIA would have let you walk into this trap without backup. The Navy abandoned you after you gave them everything. What loyalty do you owe them? They're my country." "Your country." Dmitry smiled. "The same country that classified your missions, denied your existence, and left you to raise 2 children on an accountant's salary, while men who never held a rifle got rich selling the weapons you used. Better than selling those weapons to terrorists." "I don't sell to terrorists, Mrs. Mitchell. I sell to governments. The only difference between a terrorist and a freedom fighter is which government is writing the check." Movement in the shadows caught Sarah's attention. At least 20 men, all armed, all watching. This wasn't just a meeting, it was an audition. "You didn't bring me here to offer me a job," she said. "You brought me here to kill me, publicly. To show your buyers that you can take down the ghost of Fallujah." Perceptive. "Yes, that was the original plan, but then I watched the footage from Titan. You're not just skilled, you're innovative, adaptable." The fire suppression system was inspired. He set down his drink. "So I'm offering you a choice. Work for me and I'll pay you $10 million a year. Your children will want for nothing. The best schools, the best health care, complete security. Or we do this the hard way." He gestured to his men. 20 against 1. Even for you, those aren't good odds. Sarah studied the positioning of the guards, the exits, the machinery that could provide cover. 20 men was a lot, but they were spread out, comfortable, not expecting her to actually fight. Half had their weapons slung, the others held them casually. "Can I ask you something first?" "Of course." "The prison break. That was just cover, wasn't it? You let those terrorists out to create chaos while you stole the operative list." "Very good. Though let out is understating it. I planned that break for 6 months, placing guards compromising systems. The CIA's background checks are thorough but not perfect. And they're still loose. 43 terrorists running free. 41, you killed 2, I believe." Sarah's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, seeing a message from Diana, "Teams in position. Right on time." "You know," Sarah said conversationally, "your brother made the same mistake you're making." "Which is?" "Underestimating me." She moved before the words finished leaving her mouth. The chair flew at Dmitry's face as Sarah dove left, rolling behind a massive industrial press. Gunfire erupted, bullets sparking off metal, but she was already moving. The SIG was 15 feet away, but there was a closer option. One of the guards had set his AK-47 against a crate while he smoked. Sarah came up running, grabbed the weapon, and put 3 rounds in him before spinning to spray, covering fire at the others. "Take her alive!" Dmitri shouted, but his men were already committed to the firefight. Sarah knew she couldn't win a straight gunfight. 20-1 were impossible odds in an open exchange, but this wasn't open terrain. It was a maze of machinery, catwalks, and shadows. This was exactly the kind of environment SEALs trained for. She killed the lights with one long burst, plunging half the warehouse into darkness. Night fighting was a SEAL specialty, and while these men fumbled for flashlights, Sarah was already moving memory mapping the space. 3 guards down before they knew she'd moved. Their muzzle flashes gave away their positions, and Sarah picked them off with surgical precision. But the others were adapting using disciplined fire teams to try to pin her down. A grenade rolled across the floor. Sarah ran diving behind a concrete support pillar as shrapnel filled the air where she'd been. Her shoulder screamed in protest, a 3-week-old wound not fully healed. "You're only delaying the inevitable," Dmitri called out. "You're outnumbered, outgunned, and my reinforcements are already en route." Sarah smiled grimly. So were hers. She climbed using machinery and pipes to reach the catwalks above. From here, she could see the tactical situation better. Dmitri had pulled back to a defensive position near the exit, 10 men forming a protective circle around him. The other 7 were hunting her, moving in pairs through the machinery below. Time to even the odds. Sarah found what she was looking for, the warehouse's old sprinkler system. Not water, this was an industrial facility. The pipes were marked with hazard symbols, fire suppression foam designed to smother chemical fires. She shot the main valve. Foam exploded from overhead nozzles, thick and white, reducing visibility to 0. Men shouted in confusion, unable to see more than inches in front of their faces. But Sarah had memorized their positions, and she moved through the foam like a ghost, her knife silent and deadly. 4 more down before someone got smart and started firing blindly. Sarah dropped flat as bullets whined overhead, then low-crawled toward the exit. She found Dmitri by sound, his cultured voice shouting orders in Russian. He was maybe 10 feet away, invisible in the foam, but clearly agitated. Sarah raised her weapon, then hesitated. Killing Anton had been necessary, clear-cut. But Dmitri, despite everything, had kept his word about her children. He was a criminal arms dealer, probably responsible for thousands of deaths, but the foam was starting to settle, visibility returning. She could see his outline now, tall and commanding even in chaos. Their eyes met through the white haze. "Clever," he said, raising his own weapon, "but not clever enough." They fired simultaneously. Sarah felt the bullet crease her ribs, spinning her around. Her shot took Dmitri in the shoulder, dropping him to one knee. Both scrambled for cover as the surviving guards opened fire. "I'm impressed," Dmitri called out, pain evident in his voice. "Anton said you were just another American soldier playing hero. But you're more, aren't you? You're like me, a survivor." "I'm nothing like you." "No. You killed 6 men in the last 5 minutes. Did you hesitate? Feel remorse? Or did you simply do what was necessary?" Sarah didn't answer, partly because he was right. She'd felt nothing. Each kill had been a tactical decision, nothing more. "Join me, Sarah. May I call you Sarah? Join me and stop pretending to be something you're not. I know exactly what I am." "Do you? You're a killer who pretends to be a mother. Or perhaps a mother who pretends to be a killer. Either way, you're living a lie." The foam had settled enough now that Sarah could see the warehouse entrance, and through it approaching lights, vehicles, many of them. "Your reinforcements?" she asked. "Or yours? Shall we find out?" The vehicle screeched to a halt outside. Sarah heard doors opening, boots on concrete, weapons being readied. Then a familiar voice. "Federal agents, everyone drop your weapons. Marcus. The FBI, not CIA." Diana must have called them when the agency hesitated. Dmitri laughed, though it turned into a cough, blood on his lips. Her shot had done more damage than she'd thought. "Well played. Though I wonder, will your FBI friend still care for you when he learns the truth about Baghdad, about the hospital?" Sarah's blood went cold. "You don't know anything about that. 18 children, wasn't it collateral damage from a drone strike you called in? Wrong coordinates, they said. Fog of war. But you knew, didn't you? You knew there was a chance civilians were in that building, and you called it in anyway. It was a weapons cache. Intel confirmed. Intel was wrong, as you suspected. But you made the call anyway because 5 of your team were pinned down and would die without air support." Dmitri stood slowly, one hand pressed to his shoulder. "You traded 18 Iraqi children for 5 American soldiers. The mathematics of war." "Drop the weapon." FBI agents flooded the warehouse, weapons trained on both of them. Dmitri smiled at Sarah. "This isn't over. My organization doesn't forget. And that hospital in Baghdad, I have video. Satellite footage showing you had visual confirmation of civilians before you made that call. How long do you think your new life lasts when that becomes public? Sarah kept her weapon trained on him as FBI agents moved to secure the scene. You're threatening me. I'm offering you truth. You can't escape what you are, Sarah. None of us can. The only question is whether you'll keep lying to yourself about it. Marcus approached carefully, weapon drawn, but not quite pointed at her. Sarah, you okay? She looked at him. FBI agent Goodman, someone who believed in right and wrong, black and white. Then at Dimitri, who despite the blood and pain still smiled like he'd won. I'm fine, she lied, lowering her weapon. FBI agents swarmed Dimitri, cuffing him despite his injury. As they dragged him past, he leaned close to Sarah. 6 months, he whispered. In 6 months, when you're drowning in their bureaucracy and lies, remember my offer. It stands. Then he was gone, loaded into an ambulance under heavy guard. Marcus holstered his weapon and moved to check Sarah's injuries. Diana called us, said you'd walked into a trap to save your kids. Are they really safe? They were never in danger. It was a bluff. But you couldn't know that. No, I couldn't. He was quiet for a moment, then. 20 men. You took on 20 armed men alone. 17. I only killed 17. Only. He shook his head. Sarah, what you did, it's impossible. Improbable, not impossible. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, you're something else. Something I don't understand. There it was. The fear she'd seen in so many eyes over the years. The realization that she wasn't normal, wasn't safe, wasn't the suburban mom she pretended to be. I should go, she said. My kids. Sarah. He caught her arm gently. I'm not afraid of you. I'm afraid for you. This life, these people like Volkov, they'll never stop coming. I know. So what are you going to do? She looked around the warehouse at the bodies, the foam, the blood. Her blood. This was the second time in 3 weeks she'd been forced to become the ghost again. How many more times before her children paid the price? I don't know, she admitted. But even as she said it, she heard Dimitri's words echoing, you can't escape what you are. The FBI medic arrived, started treating her ribs. Sarah barely felt it. Her mind was elsewhere, calculating, analyzing. Dimitri was in custody, but his organization remained. The 41 escaped terrorists were still out there. The operative list he'd stolen could compromise hundreds of operations. Ma'am, the medic was saying something. Ma'am, we need to get you to a hospital. No hospitals. The words came out sharper than intended. Hospitals meant questions, records, attention. Just patch me up. Marcus frowned. Sarah, you were shot. I need to see my kids. She stood, ignoring the pain. They're expecting me for dinner. Dinner? You just took down a terrorist cell and you're worried about dinner. I'm a mother first. Everything else is secondary. But as she walked out of the warehouse, she pulled out her phone and found Diana's number. The offer, she said when the CIA recruiter answered. Is it still on the table? After today, Sarah, you can write your own ticket. I want full immunity for all past operations, sealed records on Baghdad, and my children are never ever to be involved or threatened. Done. And I want Marcus Stone read in, fully. If I'm doing this, I need someone I trust watching my back. That's irregular, but I'll make it happen. Sarah reached her car, a rental since hers was still in the warehouse. In the mirror, she saw herself, blood on her clothes, foam in her hair, eyes that had seen too much. But also determination, purpose. When do I start? Tomorrow, if you're ready. I'm ready. She ended the call and drove toward her children, toward the lie of normal life. But Dimitri had been right about one thing: she couldn't escape what she was. So she'd stop trying. She'd be both the mother who made pancakes and helped with homework, and the warrior who stood between her children in the darkness. The ghost of Fallujah was done hiding, but as she drove, she noticed a black sedan following 3 cars back. Then another parallel on the adjacent street. Not FBI, not CIA, someone else. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello, Sarah. A new voice. Female accented, but not Russian. Middle Eastern, maybe Persian. My name is Jasmine. I represent certain interests who were very impressed by your performance today. Not interested, not even in learning who really ordered that hospital strike in Baghdad, who changed the coordinates you sent, who wanted those children dead and you blame for it. Sarah's hands tightened on the steering wheel. You're lying. Am I check your glove compartment? Sarah reached over, flipped it open. Inside was a manila envelope she knew hadn't been there before. Someone had been in her car while she was in the warehouse. Don't open it while driving, but when you do, you'll find proof that you were set up. That someone in your own command wanted you discredited, discharged, destroyed. Why would anyone? Because you were too good, too effective, too dangerous to the wrong people. The ghost of Fallujah had enemies on both sides, Sarah. Some wore turbans, others wore American flag pins. The line went dead. Sarah drove in silence, the envelope seeming to pulse with malevolent energy beside her. Another player in the game. Another threat or opportunity. The regular world, the one where her biggest concern had been Jake's science project, seemed like a distant dream now. But that was the price of being what she was. The Volkov brothers had awakened something that couldn't be put back to sleep. The question now wasn't whether she'd fight, but who she'd fight for, and who she could trust when everyone seemed to have an agenda. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jake. "Mom, are you coming home? Emma won't eat her vegetables until you're here." Sarah smiled despite everything, then texted back, "On my way. Tell Emma if she eats her broccoli, I'll tell you both a story about a princess who was secretly a ninja." "That sounds made up," Jake replied. If only he knew, Sarah thought. If only he knew. The safe house wasn't much to look at. A two-story colonial in Arlington that the CIA used for debriefings and temporary witness protection. Sarah stood in the kitchen at 3 a.m., unable to sleep, staring at the contents of Jasmine's envelope spread across the counter. Satellite photos, communication transcripts, classified documents that should have been destroyed years ago. The proof was damning. Colonel James Morrison, her commanding officer in Iraq, had deliberately altered the coordinates of her strike request. He'd known about the civilians in the building, had wanted them dead to provoke local outrage and justify an expanded military presence. Sarah had been the perfect scapegoat, a female SEAL in a unit that still resented her presence. Her phone vibrated. Marcus texting from his car outside. "Diana's here, says it's urgent." Sarah let them in, noting the tension in Diana's usually composed features. "We have a problem," Diana said without preamble. "Dmitry Volkov escaped." "What?" Marcus nearly shouted. "How he was in federal custody, maximum security. Inside help. Guards found dead, no cameras, no witnesses. Professional extraction." Diana turned to Sarah. "But that's not the worst part. The 41 terrorists from the prison bureau, they weren't random. They were specifically chosen. Each one has specialized skills." "What kind of skills?" "Nuclear engineers, bioweapons experts, cyber warfare specialists. Dmitry wasn't breaking them out for chaos. He was recruiting." Sarah felt the pieces clicking together. He's building something, not selling weapons, but creating them. "Our analysts agree, but we don't know what or where." Diana pulled out a tablet showing a map of the East Coast. "In the last 72 hours, there have been 17 equipment thefts from laboratories and technical facilities, all following a pattern that suggests." The window exploded. Sarah tackled Diana to the floor as automatic weapons fire raked the kitchen. Marcus overturned the table, providing minimal cover as bullets shredded the walls. "Second floor," Sarah shouted, already moving. "Go!" They crawled toward the stairs, plaster and debris raining down. Sarah grabbed her go-bag from beside the door, old habits dying hard, and pulled out an MP5K she'd appropriated from the warehouse. The front door imploded. 4 men in tactical gear rushed in, weapons sweeping for targets. Sarah fired from the stairs, dropping 2 before the others dove for cover. "This house is CIA protected," Diana shouted. "Attacking it is an act of war." The response was a grenade rolling across the floor. Sarah grabbed both Marcus and Diana, hauling them up the stairs with strength born of adrenaline. The explosion destroyed the lower floor, fire spreading rapidly through the old structure. In the master bedroom, Sarah kicked out the window. "Fire escape, move." They climbed out as more attackers entered the burning house below. Sarah could hear sirens in the distance, but they'd be too late. On the ground, she led them through backyards, vaulting fences, using the suburban geography she'd memorized out of paranoia that now proved justified. A black SUV screeched around the corner. Sarah raised her weapon, then lowered it as the window rolled down. Colonel Mackenzie leaned out. "Get in." They piled into the vehicle as more gunfire erupted behind them. Mackenzie drove with surprising skill for a man his age, taking corners at speeds that had Diana gripping the door handle. "How did you know?" Sarah asked. "Got a call from an old friend at NSA. A lot of chatter about a CIA safe house. Figured it might be yours." He glanced in the mirror. "We've got company." 2 vehicles pursuing, closing fast. Sarah climbed into the back, smashing out the rear window with her weapon stock. "Keep it steady." She fired controlled bursts, aiming for tires and engines. One pursuing vehicle swerved, flipped, exploded. The second kept coming. Railroad crossing ahead, Mackenzie shouted. Sarah saw it. The barriers coming down, freight train approaching. You're not thinking. Mackenzie floored it. They shot through the barriers just as the train roared past, cutting off pursuit. For a moment, nobody spoke, catching their breath. My kids, Sarah said suddenly. If they found the safe house. Already taken care of, Mackenzie assured her. Moved them to Fort Meade an hour ago. Full military protection. Sarah relaxed fractionally, then noticed Marcus staring at her. What? You had an MP5K in your go bag in a CIA safe house. Always be prepared. That's not prepared, that's paranoid. Paranoid is alive. Diana's phone buzzed. She answered, face going pale. Yes, Director. I understand. Yes, sir. She hung up. That was the Director of Central Intelligence. There's been an incident. A nuclear reactor in Pennsylvania reporting unusual activity. The plant's computers are showing normal operations, but infrared satellites detect heat signatures consistent with something else. What kind of something else? Weapons-grade uranium enrichment. Sarah felt her blood chill. Dimitri's building a bomb. Multiple bombs based on the heat signatures. And Sarah, one of the escaped prisoners, is Dr. Aziz Rahman, Pakistani nuclear physicist who designed their military's warheads. How long until they have functional weapons? Best estimate 72 hours. Mackenzie pulled over at an abandoned gas station. We need a plan. The agency's mobilizing everything, Diana said. SEAL teams, Delta Force, FBI, HRT. It won't be enough, Sarah interrupted. Dimitri knows our playbook. He probably has people inside those units feeding him intel. Then what do you suggest? Sarah's phone rang, unknown number. She almost didn't answer, then recognized a pattern in the number sequence, an old SEAL communication code. Mitchell. Hello, Ghost? The voice was gravelly weathered. Been a long time. Sarah's breath caught. Wolfman. Marcus and Diana looked confused, but Mackenzie's eyes widened in recognition. Thought you were dead, Sarah said. Reports greatly exaggerated. Listen, I've been tracking our Russian friend. I know where he is. How? Because I've been inside his organization for 6 months. Deep cover for Defense Intelligence Agency. The military sea. Dimitri doesn't know you're alive. Nobody does officially, but my cover's blown. His cyber specialist detected my transmissions. I've got maybe 30 minutes before they find me. Where are you? Chesapeake Bay. Abandoned oil platform 12 miles offshore. That's where they're building the bombs. But Sarah, it's worse than nuclear. They have bioweapons too, something called Project Prometheus. What is it? Weaponized rabies crossed with Ebola. Airborne 90% fatal, no cure. They're planning to detonate the nukes in major cities, then release the bioweapon in the chaos. Collapse the entire eastern seaboard. Sarah closed her eyes. Millions would die. How many personnel on the platform? 60 fighters plus the specialists. Heavy weapons, air defenses, the works. And Sarah, Morrison's here. Her eyes snapped open. Colonel Morrison, he's part of this. He's running the military side. Turns out he's been selling secrets to Dimitri for years. Baghdad was just the beginning. The pieces fell into place. Morrison had destroyed her career to cover his treason, used her as a scapegoat while he sold out their country. Wolfman, can you sabotage their operations? Negative, but I can get you in. There's a maintenance tunnel that connects to an underwater pipeline, abandoned since the platform shut down. I can override the sensors for 20 minutes, maybe 30. That's a one-way trip. Then you better bring backup. The line went dead. Sarah looked at the others. I need a team. The agency won't authorize, Diana began. I don't care what they authorize. In 72 hours, the East Coast burns. We stop it now or millions die. Marcus stepped forward. I'm in. You're FBI, not military. I qualified expert marksman, and you need someone you trust. Mackenzie cracked his knuckles. I might be old, but I can still fight. Colonel, with respect. Mitchell, I trained you. I'm not sitting this out. Sarah wanted to argue, but knew that look. Mackenzie wouldn't be dissuaded. I can get you resources, Diana offered. Weapons, equipment, transportation, off the books. Do it. And Diana, I need you to contact someone for me. Sarah pulled out her phone, scrolling to a number she hadn't dialed in years. Tell him the ghost needs the pack. Within an hour, Diana had arranged everything. A warehouse near the dock served as their staging area, filled with enough weapons and equipment to outfit a small army. And Sarah's call had been answered. They came in ones and twos, men and women she'd served with, fought beside, bled with. Razor the sniper who'd never missed a shot. Titan 6'5" of pure muscle and surprisingly gentle soul. Mockingbird who could mimic any voice and hack any system. Phoenix, the medic who'd brought people back from the edge of death. 8 former SEALs, all officially retired or dead, all owing Sarah their lives. When do we move? Razor asked, checking his rifle. 2 hours. We go in underwater through the maintenance tunnel. Primary objective is stopping the bombs. Secondary is the bioweapon. And Morrison, Titan's voice carried years of rage. They all knew what he'd done to Sarah. He's mine. Mockingbird pulled up schematics on her laptop. Platform has 3 levels. Manufacturing on the bottom, barracks in the middle, command center up top. If Wolfman's intel is good, the bombs are being assembled on level 1, bioweapon storage on level 2. We split into 3 teams, Sarah decided. Team 1 secures the bombs. Team 2 handles the bioweapon. Team 3 creates chaos, draws their forces away from the objectives. And Dimitri, leave him to me. Marcus frowned. Sarah, you can't take him alone. Watch me. They geared up in silence, each preparing in their own way. Sarah noticed Marcus struggling with his tactical vest and helped him adjust it. Nervous, she asked. Terrified. You always it keeps you sharp. How do you do it? Turn off the fear when you need to. You don't turn it off. You use it. Channel it into action, decision, survival. Diana approached. Transport's ready. And Sarah, the director wanted me to tell you that if you pull this off, there's a position waiting for you. Deputy Director of Special Operations. If I pull this off, when? He said when. Sarah smiled grimly. Tell him I just want my kids safe. The boat ride to the platform was silent except for the engine's rumble. Sarah stood at the bow, watching the structure emerge from the darkness. It looked like a metal island lit up like a Christmas tree, bristling with weapons. Infrared shows 60-plus signatures, Mockingbird reported, mostly concentrated in the barracks, skeleton crew on the lower level. They're not expecting an attack, Sarah realized. They think they're invisible out here. Pride goeth, Razor murmured. They anchored a quarter-mile out outside the platform's sensor range. The dive equipment was top-tier military-grade rebreathers that wouldn't produce bubbles. Sarah looked at her team, these ghosts from her past, ready to follow her into hell. Some of us won't come back, she said simply. We know, Phoenix replied. Worth it to stop this. They slipped into this black water, descending into darkness. The maintenance tunnel was exactly where Wolfman had set a rusted pipe barely wide enough for 1 person at a time. Sarah led fighting claustrophobia as they crawled through centuries of accumulated silt and debris. After an eternity, she saw light ahead. The tunnel opened into a maintenance chamber flooded, but with an air pocket at the top. They surfaced, carefully, weapons ready. Empty. They climbed out, dripping and alert. Sarah checked her watch, 200 hours. Dawn in 4 hours. Team assignments, she whispered. Razor, Phoenix, Marcus, you're Team 1. Disable those nukes. Titan, Mockingbird, Mackenzie. Team 2, secure the bioweapon. The rest with me. They split up, moving through the platform's bowels like deadly shadows. Sarah's team encountered the first guards outside the manufacturing sector. 2 quick shots from her suppressed pistol bodies hidden in a storage locker. The manufacturing floor was massive, and Sarah's breath caught at what she saw. Not 3 nuclear devices as estimated, but 6. Each one compact enough to fit in a large suitcase. Portable nuclear weapons, Marcus breathed. They could put these anywhere. Dr. Rahman stood at a workstation making final adjustments to 1 device. He looked up as they entered, resignation on his face. I wondered when you'd come, he said in accented English. You're too late. The weapons are armed. Any attempt to disarm them will trigger detonation. Sarah pressed her pistol to his head. Then you'll disarm them. I'd rather die. Fine. She shifted the weapon to his knee and fired. Rahman screamed, collapsing. Sarah knelt beside him. That was your kneecap. I have plenty more bullets and you have plenty more joints. Disarm them. You're supposed to be the good guys. Good is relative when millions of lives are at stake. Rahman looked into her eyes and saw no mercy there. With shaking hands, he began entering codes into the nearest device. Meanwhile, Team 2 had reached the bioweapon storage. Titan kicked in the door to find a laboratory from nightmares. Glass containers filled with milky fluid, each labeled with biohazard symbols. Don't shoot, Mockingbird warned. 1 broken container could kill us all. A scientist in a hazmat suit turned, holding one of the containers. Stay back, I'll release it. Mackenzie didn't hesitate. His shot took the scientist in the head, the container falling. Titan dove, catching it inches from the floor. Everyone held their breath. Secure, Titan said, gently placing it back in storage. We need to destroy these safely, Phoenix said. Mockingbird was already at a computer terminal. There's an incinerator protocol. 2,000 degrees reduces everything to ash. Do it! As she worked, alarms began blaring throughout the platform. So much for stealth, Mackenzie muttered. Sarah heard it too from her position. She activated her radio. All teams were blown, weapons free. The platform erupted into chaos. Dimitri's men poured from the barracks, but they ran into Sarah's Team 3, who'd set up overlapping fields of fire. Bodies fell like wheat before a scythe. Sarah left Marcus and Phoenix to handle Rahman and the nukes. She had other prey. Morrison would be in the command center. She knew him, knew his arrogance would demand he watch his plan unfold from the best vantage point. She climbed, shooting 3 guards who tried to stop her. Behind her, she could hear the full battle raging. Explosions shook the platform as someone, probably Titan, had found the armory. The command center door was reinforced steel. Sarah attached a breaching charge, then thought better of it. Morrison would expect that. She climbed outside, using the platform's superstructure to reach the command center windows. Through them, she could see Morrison at a console, Dimitri beside him, both focused on monitors showing the battle below. Sarah shot out the window and dove through. Morrison spun, drawing his sidearm, but Sarah was already on him. They crashed to the floor, wrestling for the gun. He was bigger, stronger, but Sarah had rage. She broke his wrist, took the gun, and stood. "Hello, Colonel." Morrison cradled his broken wrist. "Mitchell, I should have had you killed in Baghdad. You tried, failed, then failing now. You have no idea what you've stumbled into. This is bigger than just weapons. There's a new world order coming," and Sarah shot him in the stomach. Not immediately fatal, but agonizing. "That's for the 18 children in Baghdad." Morrison gasped, blood spreading across his shirt. You were always too emotional. That's why you'll never—" She shot him again, this time in the chest. "And that's for trying to kill my kids." Morrison's eyes went wide, then empty. He toppled backward, dead. "Poetic," Dimitri said, having watched the execution without moving. "Though I expected more ceremony." Sarah turned the gun on him. "Your turn." "I think not." He held up a device. "Dead man's switch. I release this. Every nuclear device detonates immediately. Your Dr. Rahman was lying about the disarmament. Only I have the codes. You'll die too. Perhaps, but my legacy will live. The old world burns, a new one rises from the ashes." Sarah heard footsteps. Her team, what was left of it, entered the command center. Razor bleeding from a head wound. Phoenix supporting Marcus, who'd taken shrapnel, Mackenzie and Titan covering the doors. "Nukes are still active," Marcus reported. "Rahman's dead. Heart attack from the stress." "Bioweapons," Sarah asked. "Destroyed," Mockingbird confirmed. "Then it's just the nukes." Sarah kept her weapon on Dimitri. "Your move." "No, yours." Dimitri smiled. "You can shoot me, triggering the bombs and killing millions, or you can let me walk away." "Option 3, a new voice said. Everyone turned. Wolfman stood in the doorway, bloody but alive. In his hand, an identical device to Dimitri's. "Took this off your cyber specialist," Wolfman explained, "after I broke his neck. See, you were so paranoid about betrayal, you built 2 dead man switches, but they're linked to the same receiver." Dimitri's confidence cracked. "You can't know the frequency." "I do." Mockingbird. She pulled out her laptop, fingers flying. "Got it. I can clone his signal, maintain the connection while jamming his device." "Do it," Sarah ordered. "No," Dimitri lunged for Mockingbird. Sarah's bullet took him in the knee, dropping him. He screamed, clutching his leg. "Done," Mockingbird announced. "His device is dead. Wolfman's is the only active trigger." Sarah knelt beside Dimitri. "You lose." "Do I?" He laughed through the pain. "You think this ends with me? I'm just one head of the Hydra. Cut me off, 2 more rise. Then I'll cut those off too. Will you, while raising your children? While pretending to be normal? You'll spend your life looking over your shoulder, waiting for the next Dimitri, the next Morrison." Sarah stood. "Maybe, but they'll have to go through me. And as you've learned, that's harder than it looks." She raised her weapon. "Wait," Marcus said. "We need him alive. Intel on his organization." "We have his computers," Sarah replied. "We don't need him." "Sarah, you can't just execute him. There are rules." "He threatened my children." She pulled the trigger. The command center fell silent except for the distant sounds of mopping up operations below. Dimitri's body lay still, blood pooling beneath him. Marcus stared at Sarah. "That was murder. That was justice. There's a difference. Not for people like him." Wolfman carefully handed his device to Mockingbird, who began the delicate process of permanently disabling the nuclear weapons. One by one, lights on her screen turned from red to green. "Clear," she announced. "All weapons disabled." Sarah felt the tension leave her body. It was over. Really over this time. Extraction in 10 bar, Diana's voice crackled over the radio. Helicopters inbound. Sarah walked to the shattered window looking out at the dawn breaking over the Atlantic. Below, the remaining terrorists were surrendering to her team. The platform was secure. You did it, Marcus said, joining her. Saved millions of lives. We did it. What now? Back to being an accountant. Sarah laughed, surprising herself. No, I think those days are over. The CIA offer. Maybe, or something else. The point is I'm done hiding, done pretending to be something I'm not. Marcus was quiet for a moment. That dinner we talked about, is that still on the table? Sarah looked at him. FBI agent Goodman, someone who just watched her execute 2 people in cold blood and still stood beside her. You sure you want to get involved with someone like me? Someone who'd do anything to protect innocent lives, who'd take on 60 terrorists to save millions. Yeah, I think I do. I come with baggage. 2 kids of violent passion and apparently a gift for attracting international terrorists. I like kids. And as for the rest, well, life would be boring without a little excitement. The helicopters appeared on the horizon, black dots against the rising sun. Mackenzie approached. Hell of a thing, Mitchell. Hell of a thing. Thank you, sir, for everything. Don't thank me yet. There's going to be hearings, investigations. You killed 2 American citizens without trial. Traitors and terrorists. Still citizens. There will be consequences. I know. But as the helicopters landed and they prepared to leave, Sarah found she didn't care about consequences. Her children were safe. The threat was neutralized. And for the first time in 5 years, she wasn't pretending to be someone else. The flight back was quiet exhaustion setting in. Sarah dozed against Marcus's shoulder, waking only when they touched down at Fort Meade. Jake and Emma were waiting, breaking free from their military escorts to run to her. Mom! Emma launched herself into Sarah's arms. The soldiers said you were fighting bad guys. Just doing my job, sweetheart. Jake, always more perceptive, noticed the blood on her clothes, the exhaustion in her eyes. Are you okay, Mom? I am now. She held them close, breathing in the scent of their hair, feeling their warmth. This was why she fought. This was what mattered. Diana approached. The director wants to debrief you. Tomorrow. Today I'm just going to be Mom. Sarah, there are protocols. Tomorrow. Diana nodded, understanding. Tomorrow, then. But Sarah, what you did today, there'll be medals, recognition. I don't want medals. I want a promise. What kind of promise? That when the next threat comes, and we both know it will, you'll let me stop it. No bureaucracy, no red tape. Just point at me at the problem and let me solve it. Diana smiled. I think that can be arranged. Welcome to the agency, Deputy Director Mitchell. Sarah looked down at her children, then up at the morning sky. Somewhere out there, more threats waited. More Volkovs, more Morrisons, more darkness, threatening to swallow the light. But for today, she was just Mom. And that was enough. As they walked toward the waiting car, Emma tugged on her shirt. Mom, the soldiers said you're a hero. Sarah knelt down to her daughter's level. No, sweetheart. I'm just someone who knows how to protect the people she loves. Can you teach me? Jake asked. And to be strong like you. Sarah looked at her son, so young, so innocent. Part of her wanted to say no, to keep them sheltered from the darkness she'd seen. But that wouldn't keep them safe. Knowledge would. Strength would. Yes, she said. I'll teach you, but first, let's go home. As they drove away from Fort Meade, Sarah's phone buzzed one last time. Another unknown number. She almost ignored it, then saw the message. The ghost lives. The pack remembers. When you need us, we'll be there. Wolfman. She smiled and deleted the message. The ghost of Fallujah was no longer alone. She had her children. She had Marcus. She had a new purpose. And she had brothers and sisters in arms who would always have her back. The accountant was dead. The mother was eternal. The warrior was ready. And Sarah Mitchell was finally complete.